evening, and welcome to our first edition of Veterans Connection. I'll be your host, Chaplain Abel. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. This is our first program that we are starting, and since some of it pertains to veterans, I believe Veterans Day is a good day to start this program. It was originally supposed to have started this past Sunday, but because of difficulties in reference to communications, we were unable to have the show. So I'm having it this evening. And before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little something about the show. First of all, it's entitled Veterans Connection, and it's going to be concerning news that will affect not only the veterans, but the state and nation. We will be covering news about current events, social issues, as well as religion. We'll also be having news about the church, Jesus Christ, and a Bible study. Now, I have a lot of things I need to cover, but I want to get this introduction out of the way so people will be familiar with the program. We will be covering news that I get from many different sources throughout the country. Because of time and things of that nature, it is difficult at times to cover everything in depth or to even cover all the news that happens. That's why we intend to have this program twice a week. I plan on having it on Wednesday night, tonight at 10 o'clock, and again on Sunday evening at 10 o'clock. We are broadcasting from Central Florida, over in Polk County. And for those of you that are not familiar, Polk County is located in the central part of the state, mainly between Tampa and Orlando. If you go from east to west, it does go all the way to Tampa, because then we run into Hillsborough County, but that gives you a general idea where we are as far as the location on the state. Those that are familiar with Interstate 4, well, it goes basically right through Polk County, and so it's kind of a central location. So we do get news from a lot of different areas in Florida, but we also get them from many different states. And I try to cover news that would be of interest to people that are not only in the military, but people in general, mainly families and people like that, of the main things that are going out throughout the country. We hear it every day on television. We hear it on the internet. There's always something going on that seems to affect everyone's life, in a sense, and many things that have been happening in the country as far as Christianity and religion. For those of us that are familiar with the end times, we already know that many of these things will come during the coming periods. For those that do not believe in Christianity, for our atheist friends out there and others, then it really doesn't mean anything to them. But for most of those of us that do believe, we understand that things like this are going to happen. Since today is Veterans Day, I figured I would start off with a little bit of history for some people, as far as our veterans are concerned, and why we came up with Veterans Day. It was on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 97 years ago, World War I formally ended with the armistice between the Allies and Germany went into effect. In a sad irony, what began as a day to honor the fallen of the war to end all wars, Armistice Day evolved into what we now know as Veterans Day after the end of World War II. Now, on November 11th, we honor all the men and women who have served in the U.S. Armed Forces, and we remind them that their service to our country has earned our undying gratitude. It is an unfortunate reality of our civilization that sometimes wars must be fought, as hard as we try to avoid them. Our great nation was born of war. We had to fight each other in the Civil War, and as recently as last month, President Obama authorized sending troops to Syria to fight the particularly bloodthirsty breed of terrorists known as ISIS. But it is important that we take the time to honor those Americans that have served our country with great valor and selflessness. We have more than 20 million veterans in the United States. Some can be hard to spot because they can't come back from the service and blend into the fabric of American life as humbly as they put their lives on hold to serve. But we should never forget their contribution. All too often, veterans are underappreciated and forgotten in this country, even by the very government they took and take their marching orders from. The Department of Veterans Affairs' treatment of veterans over the last few years has been shameful. All veterans deserve our utmost respect and gratitude, and not only on Veterans Day. Whether they came back home from the front lines of the battlefield or swept floors on an aircraft carrier, every man and woman in the armed forces is putting their life on hold at the risk to protect our liberties. Today, thank the veterans you know for their service, but tomorrow and every day after, consider showing them a greater deal of respect and demand that our government do so as well. It's a crying shame the way the veterans are treated by the Veterans Administration. The very group that is there to protect and serve the veterans is more concerned with protecting themselves and getting all these benefits at the expense of the American military man. On another note, because it is Veterans Day, I came across this and it was kind of interesting. It honoring veterans at the Tomb of the Unknowns. One of the remarkable events occurring on Veterans Day is the national observance at the Arlington National Cemetery. The ceremony begins at 11 o'clock and honors veterans and members of the U.S. Armed Forces with the wreath laying at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, a parade of colors, and a speaking program. The tomb lies above the remains of an unidentified American soldier from World War I, representing all the fallen heroes who died during conflict. Since that time, unknowns from World War II, the Korean and Vietnam Wars were also interred in the plaza beside their comrade from World War I. In 1998, mitochondrial DNA testing identified U.S. Air Force First Lieutenant Michael Joseph Blassie as the Vietnam Unknown. The crypt that held his remains for 14 years remains empty and is now inscribed in the memory of MIAs from the conflict, honoring and keeping faith with America's missing servicemen, 1958 to 1975. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier Memorial was dedicated on November 11, 1921 by President Warren G. Harding and commemorates all veterans who died in service. The dedication was the first event in history attended by 3 U.S. presidents: Warren G. Harding, Woodrow Wilson, and William Howard Taft. One other person honored to participate in the activities was Miriam Mimi Felt. At the time, Mimi was 23 years old and worked in the Water Sanitation Division of the U.S. Health Service in Washington. She recalls watching the parade transporting the unknown soldier from the U.S. Capitol to his final resting place at Arlington. She stated there were guards, of course, all up the line, and then a special guard of honor around the catacombs. The flowers were simply magnificent. Each state and then different organizations sent wreaths of flowers made up in some beautiful piece. President Harding's wreath of red roses was on the bier, and also a white ribbon was draped over it, which Mrs. Harding had made. It was most impressive, all told. Friday, when the procession started, it was as though it were in the gray dawn, for the sun didn't really break through until it was about all past. And that went with that part of it too, at least to me. They were represented in the procession about every branch of service and in all organizations. President Harding and the Cabinet and the Senate all walked, and we had a chance to see them all very clearly. Only I missed finding Taft until he was passed. And this was by a lady who was there. If you want to know more about her experiences, you can go on the website and just type in her name, and which is Mariam, M-A-R-I-A-M, Mimi, M-I-M-I, Felt. And you can read all about her and other excerpts. So there were a couple little things there that even I was not aware of. And for all our Marine Corps family out there, happy 240th birthday to the United States Marine. Semper Fi. Also, it was Veterans Week on Wheel of Fortune, and Pat Sajak was honored with a Vietnam Veterans of America Achievement Medal. On behalf of the VVA, Steve Mackey, president of the VVA California State Council, presented the life membership to Pat Sajak with the VVA Achievement Medal. Pat, you lifted spirits while serving with the Armed Forces Vietnam Network in Saigon, and you continue to do so through your efforts of helping veterans receive the honor they rightfully deserve. Veterans Week airs from November 9th to the 13th on Wheels of Fortune. Veterans from all over the country and across all branches of the military will spin the wheel and solve puzzles for cash and prizes. Check your local listings to see when the Wheel of Fortune airs in your area.